Hello, monsters. Welcome to Ad Monsters Wednesday webinar series. Today, we are here with InMobi and Smart News, and we'll be digging into how the world of mobile monetization is evolving. With shifting user expectations, the loss of signals, and privacy regulations mounting, app publishers are constantly having to reevaluate how they will drive average revenue per daily active user. In this session, Messence GM, who we'll just call TK, will chat with Adam Sadur of Smart News about the challenges they've faced, how they've adapted to elevate their ad revenue, and what's next. Welcome, TK and Adam. We're so glad to have you guys here today. But before we get started, thank you. I saved space for you guys to talk, but sorry. I have some housekeeping items to go over with the attendees, the monsters, as we like to call them. And once we do that, we'll get into the session. Okay, monsters, welcome. If you're new to our webinar platform, I'd like to give you a few instructions on how this all works. First, if you look over to the right on your screen, you should see a chat. Here you can say, hello. Right now, I typed in, hey, monsters. Just shout back. Give me a hello so I know who's here in the room. Also, the next tab is the Q&A tab. This is where you will put questions that TK and Adam will respond to at the end of the webinar. The next section are polls. We'll be having some polls in a short while, so get ready for them. Okay, who's here? Oh, doing a roll call. Lots of people here in the chat room. Glad to see you all. Hi, Chris. Hi, Ed. Glad to see you all here. Okay, so remember I mentioned those polls? Well, we're going to jump right into those. Let's make this as interactive as possible. Okay, I'm about to start our first poll. And the question is, how is your ad revenue today versus a year ago? Okay, I've started that poll. Head over to your polls tab and take that poll. We'd like to see how everyone's ad revenue is doing today. We'll look at those poll results in a minute. Right now, I'd like TK and Adam to tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do at your companies or what your companies are known for. TK, can you begin?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Alan. For InMobi, I am responsible for the mediation platform, Meson, and slowly, building the platform from scratch. And our goal is to build a platform based on transparency, control, and really give publishers all the tools that they need for monetization with a great user experience. Over to you, Adam.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here today. A little bit about myself. So my name is Adam Sader. I lead programmatic in our ad tech function over here at Smart News. So dabbling a little bit on in between demand and supply, managing our programmatic sales efforts, talking with agencies and brands directly, but also our ad stack, inclusive of all of our monetization partners, bidders, data, brand safety partners, et cetera, et cetera. A little bit about Smart News. We are a global leading news discovery app. If you haven't heard of Smart News before, this is actually always one of my favorite conversations since myself having a journalism background and really appreciating quality information. That's one of the reasons I was driven to be here. So our mission is delivering the world's quality information to the people who need it. We are a news aggregator. So if you haven't heard of us before, we are a Japanese-based news company. So in Japan, we are the #1 news app, more downloads than any major social app you can think of, and certainly more than half of the country who has smartphones has our app on their phone. I came to Smart News about a year and a half ago to kind of help spearhead our US ads business. And so we've been growing in the United States, and really, especially with a lot happening in the news front since I've joined, we really focus on human curation, but also building our world-class machine learning algorithms to give our users quality information and content, and of course, relevant advertising.
Thank you, TK and Adam. You know what? I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Lindy Johnson, and I'm the content director at AdMonsters, and I will be your host for this webinar. Should have said that right at the beginning. TK and Adam, let's get right into the content and what everyone came here for today. Can you tell us a little bit about the monetization challenges facing mobile app publishers today?
Sure, I can jump in. So this is such a loaded question and can go a few different directions. So if I had to guess, we are going to go into privacy and privacy-related changes around major operating systems and things like that, which certainly have impacted us. I think we'll go into brand safety a little bit as well later. I think for this, I think one of the major challenges, especially being a news publisher, a news app in particular, is exactly the topic you see here. So balancing revenue and retention. So overall, something important to Smart News, I would say, is, you know, when it comes to giving quality information to your users and being a news app, our trust with our users and our customers ultimately is the most important to us. So with that degree of trust comes not overusing any data that we may have, things like PI and things like that, not riddling our app with intrusive advertising or anything like that. People come to our app for a clean experience to get news information, and advertising is certainly secondary. So one of our kind of guiding principles at Smart News is, of course, I'm sure all the publishers here listening care about revenue. We certainly care about revenue too, but engagement is really our North Star. We don't want to focus on low quality acquisition. We certainly want people to use the app and have it be part of their daily ritual. So by doing that, we really have focused on engagement and really finding that balance between engagement and advertising. And, you know, as we have launched our programmatic business in the US, certainly being able to work internally, especially in terms of setting those guardrails, making sure that revenue and user engagement can be balanced is really, really important. Listening to our users is also very important. So, you know, there's quite a few things that we've done at Smart News to kind of find that balance. This is going to be both qualitative and quantitative items. So everything we do, every new ad, every new feature, whether it's data or an ad format, is going to go through thorough A/B testing. But, you know, data can only tell us so much. So something that our founders and our CEO and downward have done is actually going out and market. Actually understanding what's important to users to have a good experience, everything from during the elections, going on road trips and talking with both parties and everyone in between to actually understand how people want to consume news and what their ideal habits are, and how advertising can really play an integral role in helping to fund that. We are a free app at the end of the day, so we are funded by advertising.
I mean, I think I'll double down on what Adam said, in that, you know, monetization is important, but monetization is a secondary metric. User retention, user experience on the app are important to our publishers, and we know that. So from a mediation platform, the goal is, how do we maintain that user experience? How do we enable our publishers to maintain their user experience while giving complete transparency so that they can make informed decisions? That's what I think that's what we need to do, so that users can feel the benefit of that. The primary reason why people go to Smart News, and I'm a Smart News user even before I met Adam, and the reason is that app experience, right? So for us, we look at monetization as something that has to be done, but it has to be done in a way where you retain the user, you maintain the privacy. So we give complete transparency to the publisher on the platform, and we kind of a publisher-led platform, so to speak, from a mediation perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's a kind of a shameless plug also for InMobi. So one thing is always going to be relevant advertising as well. So working with partners that we can double down on in terms of ensuring that they're going to be relevant. It's going to be privacy centric, and we're not necessarily intrusive or invasive of our customers. I think just like both of our companies and a lot of folks on this call at the end of the day, I know Smart News is certainly powered by our content recommendation engine. We are an AI and ML based company at the end of the day. And while that works for the most part, we also, there's also human curation for content and things that really matter, which is something that Smart News certainly prides itself in terms of how we handle that.
Thank you, TK and Adam, for those insightful information. I think now would be a good time to dive into the results of the poll. And also, I'm very interested to hear us talk about privacy a little more later, because you've already talked about user experience and the way that privacy changes are happening. It's getting harder to customize those user experiences. So I can't wait to hear more about that. So looking at the poll, it looks like we have 50 responses. And wow, this is interesting. A lot of people are saying that their ad revenue is better today than it was a year ago. Well, I think maybe the reason for that could be the pandemic. That's the only thing I could think of. But with all of the privacy changes, I find that interesting. What do you guys think? That most people are saying their ad revenue is better today than it was a year ago.
I think time spent, what you alluded to, what the pandemic has done, I think time spent on mobile devices in general have gone up from a year ago. So there's more users that are on their mobile devices than a year ago. So by virtue of that scale, ad revenue is probably better, and that's a good sign for the app that it is growing, right? If you look at the marketplace, the ad spends itself has not significantly increased other than seasonal year over year. The fact that publishers are saying, I am able to monetize better is good for the app in terms of time spent on the app is increasing on a per user basis. And that's what we as a platform try to focus is how do you make sure that while you monetize those users, you are giving them a really good experience so that they come back to their app. And this is a good indication that the good monetization platforms like Meson will enable those monetization without driving the users away, which is very, very critical, right? And would love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I actually am quite surprised to hear the results, given some of the headwinds around ATT and recession looming and things like that. I think Smart News is certainly in its own microcosm recently launched the business, so positive results for us. But I also know, thinking of engagement, what we've seen and noticed is, time spent has gone up to 19 minutes in the app, which is considerable. So I assume publishers are also really focusing on different metrics, whether that's revenue or ARPDAU. I think definitely a mobile app specific term in terms of average revenue per daily active user. So generally a bit surprised by that, but I think that publishers have really been able to double down on metrics that matter.
Thank you. I think it's time for another poll. Please head over to the poll tab to answer the following question, and we'll look at those results later. How do you optimize your ad revenue today? And I think that's a good question to help us dive into the next topic. Adam, how is Smart News balancing demand sources for optimal returns?
This is such a great question. So since we really launched in the US, it was very much a programmatic specific business. So everything from onboarding our ad server to various header bidding partnerships to over 30 different SSP or mediation partners that we work with today. One exciting news that came in September during advertising week was while we've been in market for a little while, officially launching our direct and programmatic direct sales team. So for us, one of the key elements is really how do we balance internal sales efforts, as well as the needs of our various monetization partners. And I'm sure a lot of publishers listening to this are saying it's not an easy task, but I think what has really led to us being successful is working with partners today that offer unique functionality that can really help aid both our monetization on the open exchange, but also through things like PMPs and preferred deals and other type of programmatic deals that we set up. So Smart News is fairly, SSP agnostic, but we've really been able to focus on specific partners that add value to us, not just an open auction, but also through things like PMPs or marketplace development efforts. Certainly, InMobi is one of those partners, as well as a handful of other SSPs. So while we may work with 30 plus partners, we know that 5 or 6 of them are worth really double downing on and focusing on, if that represent, let's say, 60% plus of our revenue. So it's really about focusing on partners that will really help us move the needle and where their values are aligned with ours.
The last line is such a powerful statement, Adam. The values being aligned, because those values are about you, about your users, about the sanctity of what the content that you deliver, right? From a platform perspective, the way we built Meson is to put the control in the hands of the publisher, right? Give them full transparency over auction dynamics. They can look at every single bid, win or loss, and make an informed decision about what is good for them, what do they need to do for monetization, and what is good for their users, right? We already have a scaled monetization engine within InMobi. InMobi Exchange, which is a demand partner on Meson mediation platform, goes live the day you connect. So, like I said earlier, we have to make money, but how do we make that money while maintaining the sanctity of the user's privacy, user experience? Those are all the things that we focus on when we look at a mediation platform and put that control in the hands of the publisher.
Absolutely. And I would also add that, of course, just when it comes to programmatic and open auction, advertiser quality is so important. So being able to unlock direct demand and have better control of that, especially in news, I would say that the 2 best investments we've made as our ad sales and kind of ad tech team have grown here at Smart News is, one, investing in our trust, safety, and operational excellence team. So we've really been able to scale this up to be able to ensure that our ad policies are being met, that we're actually listening to our users, having that feedback loop to ensure that we're always finding any ads that are not aligned with our policies. The other thing that we've invested a lot in is yield management and data science resources, of course. So being able to get that log level data, build dashboards, really set really granular pricing rules, work with partners that can provide that type of granularity is just so important. So especially, going into next year with more uncertainty, really being able to have all the tools and data that we need to, from a yield standpoint, really effectively monetize our stack.
Yeah, the transparency. Sorry to interrupt. The transparency is what we kind of double down on. Go ahead, Lynn.
No, I was just going to say, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but either one of you can answer this. Adam, you mentioned the log level data. I know that the mediation platform helps with that as well. Can you guys talk about that a little more?
Sure. Maybe I can tee it off, and Adam can follow up. From a platform perspective, to us, it is about providing transparency. It is about providing end-to-end data to our publishers in terms of how their app looks, so that they can make informed decisions. We are building a lot of MI and AI and ML capabilities on the platform to be able to help publishers optimize for better revenue. But that is, again, secondary compared to help publishers optimize for better user experience, a better growth of users. So things like, can you take all your high-value users and meaningfully target them with the kind of ads that they would be interested in, so that they understand the value that they get out of the app, and as well as the ads, right? So that control that we keep talking about, right? From a mediation perspective, Meson puts that control and transparency at the log level data in the hands of the publishers to make informed decisions so that the user sanctity is maintained as well as there is growth in their app utilization. Adam?
Yeah, I think that all makes sense, and I would add that for us, having that data is important. So partners that can provide it transparently versus those that can is important. For us, it's really getting beyond just revenue. It's looking at how we can be efficient. So it's looking at ad request CPM. It's really going beyond to make sure that we are efficiently working with our partners and not just overly focused on top line revenue. And of course, as we think about really granular pricing rules, that's something that's really important for us in terms of actually manually getting all the data we can possibly get. And whether we're setting those daily or weekly or monthly, we've really actually, as a general strategy, and this could be a whole other 10 minutes, really gone away from like optimized and dynamic floors to fixed price floors, because we're able to get so much data to be able to set floors by contextual category or format or geo or specific things like that, which we're always testing to just maximize things from a yield perspective.
Thank you, Adam. I want to remind folks that if you have questions for Adam and TK, please post your questions in the Q&A tab, and so that we can have them respond to them later. Now let's look at the results of the second poll. How do you optimize your ad revenue today? And we've had 53 responses. It looks like most folks in this audience are saying that they're using custom-built tools internally. TK, what do you think about that one? You're on mute.
That's not quite surprising. I mean, that's kind of the premise of why we built Meson, where people want publishers want flexibility in the tool set that they use. They want control over the tool set that they use. And that's exactly what Meson aims to do, is to put that control in the hands of the publisher, right? There is so unique experiences that publishers create for the users. I mean, what Adam and team does on Smart News, again, I reiterate, I'm one of the users, is an amazing experience, but it's totally different from some other app. Right. So in that context of how publishers look towards their users and how they address each user uniquely, the mediation platform that helps monetize needs to support that. And that means control in the hands of the publisher. A cookie cutter solution doesn't give you that control, and people start building custom tools right on top. Whereas when you on Meson, we put the control all in the hands of the publisher, and so that they don't have to build anything. They can make the platform their own. So I am kind of heartened by the validation by this poll that we are on the right track in trying to put this control in the hands of the publisher, and would love to hear Adam's perspective on from a publisher point of view.
Yeah, I'd say I would just +1 generally. I think that's actually a good segue to our next topic in a lot of ways.
+1. I like that response.
Helping things move along, I know.
I talked earlier about the signal loss, and I mean, it's a big deal with Apple ATT and how things are happening with SK Ad Network, and not all buyers are using SK Ad Network. So what are publishers to do?
Yeah, and if I can take the first shot at this. This is such a, I know we've talked a lot about data and privacy, and it's something we've been talking about for a few years, and I'm sure we'll continue talking about for a few more years. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach here. I think that we probably have a fairly diverse publisher community and various people listening in here. So for the non-app people who aren't as concerned about IDFAs and SK Ad Network and things like that, it is a very different conversation than web publishers, for instance, who are worried about Google Privacy Sandbox, although that is coming to app. Supposedly either way. I think for us, it's really taking control of the data that we have, and versus waiting around to see what the powers that be might do. It's taking the data we have to control our own destiny. So for Smart News, while yes, we may have some some emails and some information that we can use, I would say that we're still going to be quite cautious in terms of overly using any personal information or data that we have. That is something that we really trust and our users trust to provide to us. And especially as a place that you come for a safe and quality information, we want to make sure that we're protecting users' privacy as well. So we've been doing a few things here to kind of combat this. One is, we are a mobile app publisher, and we have built our own IAB-based contextual targeting. And I think this is really valuable because as a mobile app publisher, for those listening, probably know that major verification companies and always can't do this, and there's sometimes a gap in terms of accessing that type of data. So that's something that, one, we make available to people who want to advertise with us directly, but we are also passing those signals and testing everything from passing contextual signals to sellers-defined audience and the various ID solutions out there. So going back to that statement that there might not be one or two solutions I can tell every publisher to go and utilize, I think it's just having that test and learn framework and preparing for an ID-less world. I think the last thing I'll say before handing it over to TK to get his thoughts is, for a news publisher like Smart News in particular, getting that zero-party data from users and building first-party audiences, like that's all great, but it's also such a organic thing for Smart News to be able to look at contextual signals, given we are news, but we also are entertainment, we're sports, we have specific sections focused. One of my favorite features on Smart News is our What to Watch, which is where if you're interested in what's the popular streaming things on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or whatever you're using, you can go there. So it's really a one-stop shop for information, but because of that, placing ads contextually and relevance is something that we do fairly well.
I have to start first by saying, one of the best user experiences that you get is from Smart News. I often read headlines and not necessarily dive into the news, and the way the app is architected is just phenomenal. There's no doubt about the user experience. Listen, I think user privacy is sanctimonious, right? You can't just invade that privacy. Publishers like Smart News understand that. We we take a few approaches, right? We help maintain the privacy of those users aligned with the values of our publishers. That's number one. Number two, we ourselves InMobi is a large publisher, right? We have, the platform is driving globally glance on lock screen and other multiple apps. We are up to almost 200 million uniques a day. So we are a very, very scaled platform with significant users globally that for whom we are addressing those privacy concerns today. But we can also bring the power of those users to our publishers to help them understand their users better if they find their users in our universe. So at the end of the day, what is that privacy data used for, right? Some of it is used for better user experience because that is inherent to our publishers. Some of them are used for better targeting so that you can provide more relevancy in monetization, right? And Meson as a platform, again, leveraging transparency and the scale of our own owned and operated, working with publishers in maintaining that walled garden of their users, try to provide that user experience. And again, putting that control in the hands of the publishers is how we do it.
And Adam, you were going to say something else?
I was going to say that, I mentioned not all publishers are the same. Even in the app space, there's gaming, there's non-gaming. We, of course, fall on the latter. So the type of targeting signals we care about when it comes to performance and working with MMP partners compared to more branding type initiatives, there is a balance there. Compared especially to web publishers who have really been focused on testing ID solutions and contextual solutions and things like that for some time. I think the app space, there is now more focus there, and we're catching up a little bit. And one thing that makes it, that's a great solution for us is working with partners that can help us connect to those type of solutions in a privacy-centric way, but also adding some flexibility. So, think of things like InMobi, UnifID, and I'll promote a solution like that. But I know there's others out there that are helpful for us to kind of give us that sandbox to test various things, especially given, if you're resource constrained and you're thinking about product roadmaps, the ability to kind of do quick test and learn scenarios to be able to understand what's really going to be valuable for you as a publisher.
Absolutely. I mean, we are building a UnifID based solution where, in a privacy centric way, at scale, right? The key thing is we need to be able to do that scale with privacy first approach, and we are building that, right? We have built the first part of that, which Adam referred to as UnifID, and the addressability of users is critical, right? Not just from a monetization perspective, but a user experience perspective. And we realized that, and it has to be done again. Just because we are building it, that doesn't mean we don't care for privacy. It is privacy first approach, and it is a user experience first approach. So Adam uses that today. So,
and Adam, I'm glad that you mentioned that not all mobile app publishers are created equal, right? Because I know that some mobile app publishers are leaning more into geolocation as the signal, whether it's a weather app or it's a store, right? It's a retailer. Some of those types of publishers might be leaning more into geolocation or other signals they can get from the device. But I know there's a lot of concern about fingerprinting, right? But we won't dive into that kind of stuff right now. I think something else that is a big challenge for mobile app publishers and for publishers in general, even publishers on the open web, is brand safety. And I think it's becoming a rougher hill to climb nowadays, because you have to think about the brand safety as it impacts your user experience, right? So you as a brand, but then also the brand safety of your advertisers, right? So I'm really curious about how you're tackling this now as it becomes more of a challenge, Adam.
Yeah, and I think this is probably the most interesting topic to me, and because it's such a top of mind conversation that we have on truly a daily basis, especially being a news app, in terms of finding that right balance of course, quality content and brand safety principles. So, going back to, our trust safety and operational excellence team, we have very strict, advertiser guidelines, as well as we have publisher guidelines, and those require enforcement. So for instance, something we cover very well at Smart News was just the midterm elections. We had dedicated features in our app to do that, but we do not allow political advertising for the reason that we are a nonpartisan news app, and our whole mission is news from all sides, giving you a healthy, balanced diet of information, not left-leaning, not overly right-leaning, somewhere in the middle. So there's kind of two sides of this. One is controlling from a content as well as an ads perspective. What I will say is that at the end of the day, we are a news publisher, and we're focused on quality information. But one of the challenges that we always face is, not only convincing advertisers why news is an important investment, and what our main strategy there is really highlighting that news is actually the #1 way that people spend time in an app, surprisingly over social media. So you want to be where users are spending time on their devices. And the other is that, funding quality journalism and information is still really important from both a holistic societal standpoint, but also in terms of literally funding these type of news publishers. So with all that being said, when we think about brand safety partnerships, we've built some of our internal brand safety tools to kind of mitigate advertiser concerns, where we can offer this actually as added value to ensure that your ads aren't being placed against non-brand suitable type of environments. And of course, like a lot of publishers, we work with brand safety verification and measurement companies out there. Mobile app is definitely a different animal compared to web in terms of even crawlers and their ability to actually look at mobile apps. That's not something that is very common in the space. So that's one of I think the very first targeting features that I raised my hand at Smart News and said, this is something we need on day one, is some type of brand safety targeting that we can provide to advertisers. And the last thing I'll say here is, working with direct demand sources is really, really helpful, and as well as bringing on third-party tools to really help us control this. So, the open exchange, you're always going to see inevitably some bad ads slip through. Of course, that's something that we reduce a lot. But working directly with partners who have those quality controls, who can really work with us and our trust, safety, and operational excellence team to really enforce those. For any partners that work with me, we're probably one of the more noisy and strict publishers out there in terms of those enforcements, but that's because we really, really value brand safety above everything else. I'll stop there and hear your thoughts, TK.
No, first off, +1, right? I mean, if that's what my publishers want, that's what I'm going to have to provide as a platform. I'll provide two viewpoints on this, right? From a mediation perspective, Meson provides that transparency so that, as a platform, we connect the publishers, the demand source, and we enable the transparent conversation, both in terms of ad delivery as well as in terms of access to data, so that there is a clear conversation on what the publisher values are, what the guidelines are, and then we use tools to enforce it on the platform. We provide flexibility in tools on Meson to provide the platform. That's number one. Number two, one of the biggest demand sources on Meson platform is our scaled exchange. And InMobi Exchange has incredible safeguards in place, both in terms of automated and otherwise, to ensure that brand safety delivery. So across the board at InMobi, we take the brand safety of our publishers' inventory extremely seriously, and we double down on that value to the publisher, both in terms of the tool sets we provide, as well as the demand dollar delivery that we do across the board.
Yeah, and I do want to say the first bullet, there's a few bullet points here that are really interesting, but charting through rocky terrains is certainly relevant. So, 2022, just like a lot of the previous few years we've had, has been interesting, especially when you think of the brand safety implications. There has been a lot of negative news, so that's something that we've certainly charted, and news publishers probably listening know what I'm talking about. So a lot of the third point here is stickiness. So not only working with your third-party monetization partners, brand safety partners, working with agencies and brands to really ensure that they understand the value of journalism, making sure that you're on all the allow lists that you need to be on, and really vetting what smart news principles are, which are not only, of course, using AI and ML to ensure it is relevant content and brand safe content and advertising. But we also find in the industry that while we can apply all the algorithms to something, there is some level of human curation that's needed as well. So really helping move the needle for us is really talking about, we have award-winning journalists and content teams here that manually vet our 3,000 plus publisher partners, ensuring that, we don't have content that is really spewing misinformation and disinformation, and really focusing on quality content, and really finding that balance. And sometimes it's easier said than done in terms of the algorithms and automation versus human curation. But I think finding that balance between has kind of led to a better ecosystem, and for us, of course, and also our users.
I mean, it's a matter of checks and balances, right, Adam? I mean, we have both ML and AI-based tools as well as manual interventions, just to validate and double check so that nothing leaks through. The tool set provides us the scale, and the checks and balances provides us the ability to ensure content safety. And so I'm aligned with you in terms of what we try and deliver to the publisher is a level of confidence with that the leakage is minimal, right? We never say, there is no question of, hey, there is no leakage, right? We never want to be thinking about along those directions and be complacent. So we are always ensuring that brand safety exist in various shapes and forms, and putting that control again I keep coming back to this, that control and transparency, so that not only I say what I say, but publishers like Smart News can look at it and say, you know what, this makes sense, or have a conversation around we can change it. And that's what we try and do with Mizan as a mediation platform.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I almost forgot to mute my microphone there. Thank you, guys. Brand safety, I feel like we could talk about that all day. Like this whole session could have been about brand safety for sure. But I mean, I think one thing is key that you guys mentioned earlier. It's like having the right partners in place, right? And I'm also interested in knowing, what do you think are some of the trends that we'll see in terms of some of the things we've talked about already, like privacy and brand safety? What are the trends that you think we'll see in 2023? And what are the predictions that you have for 2023 overall when it comes to mobile monetization?
Go, Adam.
Sure. So I think a few predictions for me. One, I think user privacy and relevancy is going to be increasingly important. And so, of course, there's always a lot of ambiguity in this space. Like I mentioned before, the wheels are starting to turn a little bit on the mobile app side. And I think there will be increased investment for mobile app publishers to have the various ID lists, contextual, et cetera, type of things, the signals they can test, the more adoption of things like seller-defined audiences. So I do think that publishers will, choose to take more control of their own destiny and basically use the data, continue to test and learn, and ultimately get to a cleaner and more privacy-centric type of universe. My personal prediction and kind of a plug-in for even Smart News is, we are a news app. So when we think about 2023, we're already thinking about, there's election type of content coming and primaries starting in 2023, which I can't believe I'm already talking about, but will happen next year. So making sure that, we do have that really clean ecosystem. I think just like us, I think publishers will really make sure that, they're vetting their content, they're vetting their ads, they're really focused on user engagement. At the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of competition in this space for eyeballs coming up over the next year or two. So ensuring that you have the best product and you can really retain your users, that ultimately and especially long term will lead to more revenue and more monetization opportunities.
I think where publishers are heading, I think the second aspect of taking control is going to be pretty critical, right? From a mediation lens, what we see happening, and that's one of the reasons why we are building Mizan, is the ability for publishers to quote unquote own the platform. And make it their own, so that there is trust in the platform. Today, sure, the marketplace is filled with platforms that can throw incentives, and it's tough to ignore those incentives. But market is heading towards a point where publishers feel taking control of that platform is critical, and the way to do that is to build trust, right? To be able to provide complete transparency, so that you see what is happening on the platform. There isn't hidden fees, and there's nothing that the publisher does not know or see. That's critical in ensuring publishers stay on the platform, trust the platform, and then once that happens, then we need to be able to provide the tool set and the ability to focus on the users. So the transparency and the control provides ability for apps to address their users in a much, much more relevant way, and be able to look at how do we grow those users. That's what, creates stickiness for any mediation platform, right? So I predict that, as much as it might sound a little bit self-serving, that the ability to give control to the publisher, the ability to build transparent auction chain to the publisher, and giving all access to the data to the publisher is what is going to help a publisher grow. And that's what we are trying to do as a platform, and that's what is going to help us grow with our publishers.
Yeah, and the word control is really interesting, because every publisher wants control over their data, but also users increasingly, we find, want more control of data and understanding what information. Of course, the privacy landscape continues to change. It's not just GDPR. it's new laws like CPRA and a host of other things being passed at the state level here. So I do think one prediction is providing more control to the users, and not really just talking about like implementing a CMP or things like that, but really building that type of feedback loop with your users to make sure they understand this is exactly how your data is being used, and this is how we intend to use it, and this is what you should be comfortable as a user allowing us to do to serve you more relevant advertising. So just Smart News, like many publishers, is a free app. So really building that trust, harping on what funds a free and open internet or mobile app in our case will be really important, and taking that user intent and signals will be, of course, something that we take a close look at.
Yeah, I mean, from a platform perspective, I translate that if I need to provide transparency to my publisher so that they can be transparent to their users, right? I mean, that at the end of the day, if that value chain is not created, then you as a publisher are going to look for a different platform. Your users are going to look for a different app. So we try and really stay very close to what do our publishers value, right? And how do we deliver that value to our publishers on a constant basis so that they can continue to scale and not just in monetization. Again, we as a mediation platform, as an advertising company, I know I have to make money for the publishers. So I will ensure that happens, right? But more and more, what is happening is the sanctity of how you monetize those users, that becomes number one. Because without those users, you're not going to monetize, right? So we have, Meson as a platform focuses on creating that trust between the users and their app, i.e. my publishers. Once that ability is there for the publishers to create that trust, then we provide the tool set, then we provide the demand density, everything else that we almost take it as given, right? If you look at across platforms, we all probably have fairly good demand density that are probably equal. So it's not, there is somebody there that is not available here unless you're a first party. It's more, how do we use that platform? What is the level of transparency? What is addressability? How do we safeguard my user so that they don't go away from my app? Those are the critical things for my publishers that we try and provide so that they can continue to grow.
There's a couple of questions coming in, but I have a couple. I always have many, but here's one. Does measurement change? Do we foresee measurement changing because of how much things are changing, or not even just measurement, even like KPIs that advertisers are looking for? Do those need to change? I think that's even the bigger question here. Adam, you first, since you sell to these brands.
Yeah, and it's a tricky question to answer. I would say measurement can be defined by a lot of things. So when we think about we're testing Apple's private click measurement, for instance, today, we're working within SKN network, things like that. I think there's a notable difference between the type of marketer, whether they're maybe more UA performance focused on app is a very different measurement conversation than someone you would have who's focused on ROAS or more of a branding type of campaign. So I guess unpacking that a little bit, I do think measurement will continue to change, especially more when it comes to mobile app marketers. I think there's a lot of good things happening in the industry as we continue to look at the latest updates coming from the various operating systems. Continuing for us even to be stickier with measurement partners and in terms of the signals and how we can get to performance will be important, and working with partners that can help us do that is important too. I also think that, especially going into 2023, we probably heard a lot of people talk about recession. So there is also a renewed focus on not just performance from it, like an app install, but also in terms of driving purchase. So, for us, it's really working with partners to see what type of signals. So contextual is one thing, but working with maybe more of an e-commerce monetization partner to see what type of purchase intent signals can be passed that can lead to monetization opportunities. And really, again, kind of using the data that we can, shaping the ML the way we need it to pass various signals to measurement partners to really impact actions. And that's, I guess, what we're all trying to do, is whether it's an install or purchasing something on an e-commerce site, we want to help that decision-making happen.
Yeah, I'll only add that from a mediation platform perspective, the alignment that we have as a platform to what a publisher like Adam needs is to provide access to measurement capabilities. Be flexible and say, we're not stuck to one. We have we validate multiple measurements so that the publishers can pick and choose what works really well for them. And the second point I'll make here is, from a scaled exchange perspective, we ensure similar measurements on the ad delivery as well. So we try and tackle this on both sides with putting control, giving the advertisers their ability to measure their KPIs without compromising what publishers need on their end.
Thank you. We have about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get to a couple of these audience questions here. And also, my team has quite a few questions for you as well. So first, we have a question for Adam. Which content does really well on Smart News besides entertainment and news, as in health, lifestyle, zodiac, etc.? We have our content on Smart News, and it would help to understand what does well with users on SN.
It's nice to hear from an existing publisher partner too. And I know I said 3,000, but it's I didn't touch on it. It's a who's who of every notable national and local news source you can think of. Generally speaking, it follows a few trends. So of course, during political seasons, we're going to see more political content. Our algorithm is going to focus on content that the user is really interested in. So it can be very seasonal. So and also is about what we are prioritizing internally. So give an example, whether it's the Oscars coming up, we're going to see more content focused on entertainment, versus the Super Bowl, we might see more focus on sports. So it will very much follow seasonal trends. But I think that generally speaking, our audience is our news junkies. They tend to be a little bit more older and affluent and college educated, et cetera. So we tend to see a little bit more focus as well on things like professional news and finance and things like that you might think are a little bit going to be endemic for our user base.
Okay, and TK, here's a question for you about Messin. Does a publisher need to use the InMobi SDK to use Messin?
No, the publisher does not have to use InMobi SDK. The InMobi SDK is for the exchange, and Mison has its own SDK and it's a demand partners. But I'll say that one of the good things about having a scaled exchange in the same company is when you go live right away with demand at scale. InMobi Exchange has close to 300 plus brand and performance demand partners. So on day one, when you integrate Mison, you have the ability to go live with InMobi Exchange, even without InMobi SDK. Though we believe even through the Mison lens, InMobi SDK will have better value, but the control whether or not to use a SDK for InMobi is in the hands of the publisher. I also see, this kind of aligns with what Andrew is asking in terms of the question, in terms of will the power be given to the user? Well, we start with giving the power from a mediation platform to the publisher so that they can provide control to their user, right? The power to the user, if an app like Adam's is going to deliver crappy ads that are not relevant to the user, of course they're going to shut off. But we as a platform and disrupt the monetization effort, but we as a platform aim to provide control to our publishers so that they can take care of their users, right? We understand, as much as publisher is our customer, we think of their users to be the predominant customers for us. We need to maintain. So I'm as passionate about Adam's users as Adam is. And that's why we are aligned, right? Because without Adam's users, Adam doesn't have an app. And without Adam, I don't have a business, right? So we are aligned in our prioritization that we need to ensure the user privacy, the user experience, the relevance of those users to the app across the board, whether it's smart news or even a gaming app. And that alignment is what we try and deliver in terms of the platform, whether it's Mison's mediation or InMobi Exchange. So, and the tool set that we provide in the hands of our publishers. Hopefully, Andrew, that answered your question.
And I think I think it does, but I think there's a second part there that, like, he's asking, and it's about, mobile app ad blockers, right, are going up or have gone up. And I think you guys have hit it right on the head, that it's like about the user experience that helps to solve for that. Would you agree, Adam?
Yeah, and certainly, ad blockers is quite common on web compared to app. But I think at the end of the day, like, I don't think most of our audience, even though we work in the space, like, ads can sometimes be intrusive and annoying. So I think making sure that it's going to be relevant and that you have a very clear communication with your users in terms of why they're seeing ads will be important. With that being said, of course, we're all familiar with working. I think I see a question around even brand safety partners, and we're all familiar with verification companies and blocking tags and things that we as publishers deal with. So it's always a balance in terms of making sure that you have very brand safe content, working with those third-party partners, but of course finding ways to certainly circumvent that, which without naming names, there are certainly third-party partners out there that can help us do that.
Well, Adam and TK, I would like to thank you for your time. How can folks reach out to you if they have more questions for you?
Well, I'm always available at TK, T as in Tom, K as in Kelly, at InMobi.com, or I'm on LinkedIn. So ping me. Always open for a chat, cup of coffee, whatever it is.
Okay, and Adam?
Well said.
Just look for you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm just down the street from TK. For those in the Bay Area, feel free to add on LinkedIn. I'm just at adam.sater@smartnews.com. That's for me. And then the sales plugin I'll add is certainly, if you're interested in working with us as an advertiser partner or more a third party partner, you can reach out to programmatic@smartnews.com.
Okay. Again, thank you, Adam and TK. And thank you, Monsters, for being here today for our webinar. I have a few small announcements to make. First, get ready for Ad Monsters events coming up in 2023. In March, we will be going to lovely Miami, returning back to Eden Rock for our March Publisher Forum. And if you're interested in joining us throughout 2023, we will have Ops in New York, Ad Monsters Ops in New York, June 5th through 6th. We will have another Publisher Forum in Coronado Island, California, August 6th through 9th. And then we'll be in New Orleans, November 5th through 8th. So look out, sign up for Ad Monsters newsletter. You can see the subscribe now button on our website, admonsters.com, to join us. And again, Adam and TK, thank you so much for your time today and teaching us about the future of monetization.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.